How should believers respond to this, regardless of what your this is? The question is, how should believers respond to this? So let's look at a few slides. Our main scripture is going to be First Peter chapter 1, verses 6 through 7. That's going to be our main focus tonight. Listen to what it says. Listen to what it says from the New King James Version. It says, "In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by various trials, that the genuineness of your faith, being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ." Now let's look at it from the New Living Translation. It says, "So be truly glad. There is wonderful joy ahead, even though you have to endure many trials for a little while." All right. I want to read that one more time. There is wonderful joy ahead, even though you have to endure many trials for a little while. These trials will show that your faith is genuine. All right. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold. So when your faith remains strong through many trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. So that New Living Translation says, look at this. This is where you need to be. There's wonderful joy ahead, even though you got to get through this, and this is going to only last a little while. All right. There's joy ahead, but you got to get through this. And here's the promise. This is only going to last for a little while. So why is this happening? So that your faith can be proven to be real. All right. So why is that important? Because one day you're going to stand before Christ and he's going to ask you, how did you respond? And depending on how you're responding, that's going to bring praise, glory, and honor to your life when you stand before Christ. Whew, Lord have mercy. So you got to understand, God sends circumstances, allows circumstances, arrange circumstances to see how you respond. And the level of your maturity, the level of your spiritual growth is not what they do to you. The level of your maturity is how you respond. All right. So that's why that person on your job keeps getting on your nerves. That's why your spouse keeps getting on your nerves. That's why things keep happening at church, at your job, at the grocery store. That's why things are happening, not to just make your life miserable, but that's the way God sees she's growing now. We want to just grade our own paper, but God grades our paper based on how we respond. All right. So let's go a little deeper. Believers are commanded. Remember this word. Believers are commanded to have a peculiar response to a crisis and in a crisis. So if you're in a crisis, as a believer, you should respond differently. If you go into a crisis, you should have a different response. Pastor, why should believers have a different response? Here's the reason. Because we have a different perspective. All right. We have a different perspective. We look at situations differently. Here's why you hear me harp on this all the time. If a trial comes, if a situation comes, a circumstance comes, it's either God allowed or God arranged. If a crazy person comes in my life, if a person comes in my life with foolishness, they're either God allowed or God arranged. So knowing that, I approach them with a different perspective. Knowing that God allowed this trial, God allowed this sickness, God allowed this suffering, God allowed this setback, it shows me that if God allowed it, it's for a purpose. So I approach it with a different perspective. Therefore, my response is different. All right. So in order to change your response, you got to have the right perspective. So what is perspective, Pastor? Perspective is simply an attitude or view towards something. Like Sister Ray says, her perspective, her attitude is goal oriented. Miss Joy said her perspective is love oriented. So a lot of people their attitude is, you come at me, I'm coming at you. Their view is you touch me, I'm touching you. All right. So depending on your perspective is how you respond. And if trouble comes, I want to please God, then my response is going to be I need to operate in faith to show God he can trust me with trouble. And when God knows he can trust you with trouble, then he can trust you with more blessings. Because as you grow, God says you're going to have more trouble. And if I keep blessing you and you can't handle trouble, I better leave you on this level. Woo, Lord have mercy. So it happens. What dictates your response is your perspective, how you view things, how you look at things. And as you grow, as you mature, you start to view things a little different. Your attitude about certain things, stuff that bothered you at 22, 23, 24, don't bother you no more because you understand it's earthly, not eternal. All right. So as you mature, your perspective should change. All right. So let's look at it. This response that I'm talking about tonight has nothing to do with emotions. Most people start their conversations like, well, Pastor, I feel. No. Take feelings out of it. It's not about feeling. What do you know? What do you know? And what you know gonna dictate how you respond. Who you know gonna dictate how you respond. All right? Here's what it says. Our response is not emotional, what or how we feel, but educational and experiential. As someone, I think Ms. Val said, what I've gone through, experiential, is going to dictate how I respond. What I know, educational, is going to dictate how I respond. Some of the most dangerous people that you know and I know don't operate on what they know, don't operate what they've been through, they operate off emotions. And those are dangerous people. They can shout in church, and before they get to the parking lot, they're doing something crazy, all right? Because it's only emotional, all right? So your response is based on what you know, and a lot of your response is based on what you've gone through. And that's why we say it in church all the time, but we really don't know what it means. When we accept somebody into the body of Christ, we accept them based on Christian experience. All right. You've gone through some stuff as a child of God. Well, we don't have to take you through the water. We don't have to do all that stuff. You've got some experiences with God, some experiences with the world, some experiences with life that lets us know that you're coming based on what you've gone through. And so those people respond differently. All right. They respond differently based on what we know and what we've gone through. All right. So let's go a little deeper. And this is why I asked that second question. Here's the reason why I asked the second question. Your perspective is based on God's command. All right. Your perspective is based on God's command. We read in verse number 6, it says, in this, here's what you need to do. You greatly rejoice. All right. God gives us a command on how to respond. And here's the part that I want to drive home with this first part. There are some commands that God gives us we don't have a problem obeying because we understand consequences. All right. God says marriage is between a husband and wife. So if you have sex outside of your marriage, that's adultery. All right. And God says, do not commit adultery. If you having sex and you're not married, that's fornication. God commands that we do not fornicate. We understand those commands and we don't do them. We understand those commands, and with God, they are not optional. All right. With our spouses, they are not optional. All right. We understand those commands. But here's what I think we don't really take into consideration. God is not asking you, well, here's what I think you ought to do. I think you ought to respond with joy. I think you ought to respond with happiness. I think you ought to respond by turning the other cheek. No, he's not asking you for your opinion about response. He's commanding you how you ought to respond if you're his child. All right. So let's look at just a few. James 1 and 2, it says, count it all joy when you meet trials of various kinds. God does not care what the circumstance is. There's no if in verse number 2. All right. Count it all joy. If it's your money, count it all joy. If it's your child, count it all joy, depending on the situation. No, the command is to count it all joy when you meet trials of various kinds. All right. So you got to understand your perspective will never change if you don't view it as a command. If you keep viewing it as an option, then you can you can respond how you feel that day. All right. But as you get to the point where you don't want to let God down, you got to get to that place where I got to get better in my responses. God, help me in my responses. I know there's some triggers that happen to me, and that trigger can make me go crazy on somebody, but I need to get to that place. Here's my spiritual goal. I need to get to that place where I can count it all joy in every circumstance. Lord have mercy. Because the command is to count it all joy when you meet various trials. All right. Well, Pastor, that might be just one passage. Let's look at another one. In this world, you will have tribulation. All right. That's no ifs, ands, or buts. But here's what he says. But be of good cheer. Be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. All right. So look at the past. He says, in this life, you're going to have some trouble. You're going to have some setbacks. You're going to have some things that get on your last nerve. You're going to have some tribulation in this world. But here's your response. Be of good cheer. All right. Maintain your joy because I've overcome the world and I've put my Holy Spirit in you to show you how to respond. All right. So third one, 1 Peter 4:12-13. Beloved, don't think it's strange concerning the fiery trials, which is to try you as though some strange thing happened to you. But rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's sufferings. All right. So he says, when stuff happened to you, God says, you're going to handle it like my son. And here's what I want you to do. Rejoice. Well, Pastor, you just don't know what it was. You just don't know. Hey, God says, here's how you respond. It's a command, not an option. All right. And so here's what Paul says. As Paul got older, he wrote this: our hearts ache, but we always have joy. Our hearts ache, but we always have joy. We are poor, but we are spiritually rich to others. We own nothing, yet we have everything. Mindset, perspective. All right. So you got to understand your response, your perspective will never change unless you view these as commands and not options. All right. And I always say this is not something you do overnight. This is maturity. And the only way you mature is you have to be taught that I need to govern my response because God commanded me to respond a certain way. All right. And so that's why it's important how we respond, because people are looking at us to see if we're going to be obedient to God's word. And one of the things I say all the time with Christians is we pick and choose which commands we're going to be serious about. We pick and choose which commands we're going to obey all the time. All right. So one of them is watch how you respond. Here's how you respond when you go through trials. Here's how you respond when you do that. All right. So now here's the question. Well, Pastor, I'm just gonna be honest. That ain't none of me right there. That's not me. I'm gonna let you have it. Hey, I know the Bible said count it all joy. I know all that, but you touch my child, you do something to my child. So now here's your second thing. You have to develop this type of perspective. God sees, and that's why I said it's good to be honest with God. So now God says, okay, I know what area to work on you in. All right. I know what area to work on you. And be careful when you say, hey, I'll act a fool about mine, because I could talk from experience. There are some things that's going to test you, Reverend. Let me see if they touch your child, you're going to have that same response. Let me see if they dog out your child, you're going to have that same response. And my wife and daughter on here, there were some situations this summer that Reverend had to take a deep breath and remember what he teaches. All right. There was some things where I had to remember what I taught you guys, and I had to eat it myself. All right. And so I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know. You have to be led by the Spirit, and regardless of circumstance, you got to begin with this. God commanded me to count it all joy. Now, here's the thing. You deal with the situation, but you deal with the situation from a different perspective. You deal with the situation. You don't sweep it under the rug. You don't say, well, I ain't gonna say nothing because I'm a child of God. No, 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 no. I'm gonna correct you. But as someone put in the chat, I'm gonna do it in a godly way. I'm gonna do it with love. I'm gonna do it in a way that it shows you that I'm a child of God. But I'm also gonna do it in a way, don't let it happen again. All right. I'm also going to do it in a way that lets you know, don't let it happen again. All right. So I think we got to understand that Christians are meek and mild, but we ain't going to keep letting you. Yeah. Go ahead and move on, Pastor. Go ahead and move on, Pastor. So now watch this. Watch this. When I understand it's a command, not an option, now I need to pray, God, I need you to develop my response. So how do you develop your response? Here's the first thing. Here's the first thing. You got to have a hope that sees beyond the here and now. All right. You got to have a hope that sees beyond the here and now. We read verse 6 that says, in this you greatly rejoice, but we didn't read 3 through 5. Listen to what 3 through 5 says. Praise be to God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade, kept in heaven for you, who through faith are shielded by God's power until the coming of salvation that is ready to be revealed at the last time. What that says is there's something greater that's ahead. So what you're dealing with now, you go ahead and rejoice knowing that greater is coming. All right. And so what we call that is hope. What is hope? Confident expectation that on the other side of this trial, God got a blessing with my name on it. So depending on how I handle this really dictates how I'm going to receive the blessing. All right. So when you face trials, you got to face trials with the perspective that there's something greater on the other side of this. God has something better. If I handle this person that's trying to get me off track, if I handle this situation that's trying to rob me of my joy, God's going to reward me on the other side of this with a blessing. All right. And so you got to approach every test with the big picture in mind. Oh, Lord have mercy. And here's a shout. We know how to do it. Because if you fail an exam your freshman year, you know you can still graduate regardless of this failed test. All right. So I don't approach every test like, oh, if I don't pass, I'm going to be in trouble. No. I know that my goal is to graduate. This is just a test on my way to something bigger. And so when you understand that, everything that God allows, everything that God arranges to come into your life, you got to have is something greater on the other side of this. And if God is testing me today, he must have a blessing tomorrow. And the reason why some of you can't walk into your blessings because you keep failing the test. No, you don't cheat. No, you don't smoke. No, you don't drink, but you don't respond to trouble well. Lord have mercy. And so we don't put that in the same category as those big sins. But if trials come and you fly off the handle each and every time, that's disobedience to what God commanded. All right. So look at what Jesus does. Look at what Jesus does in Hebrews chapter 12, verse number 2. Look at what he says. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus. Let him be the example, the author and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorned the shame, and now he's seated at the right hand of the throne of God. All right. So look at that. Look at that picture. All right. In front of him is the cross. But in order to get through the cross, I got to set my joy on what's on the other side of the cross. And what's on the other side of the cross is a seat at the right hand of God. And his mindset is there's greater joy on the other side. So let me endure this, even though it's shameful, even though it's painful. If I get through this, God has a blessing with my name on it. And so in order to get through the cross, he had to set his joy on something on the other side. And we know how to do it. The reason why you get through that difficult job on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday is because you know you got a paycheck coming Friday. The reason why you let them talk to you crazy because you got a paycheck coming Friday. The reason why you set that alarm, you get up, you put on clothes, is because you got a paycheck coming. We understand the concept, but we have a difficult time when it becomes spiritual. God says, I sent that trial so that you can handle it today so I can bless you tomorrow. I sent that trial so that you can handle it today, and I know you're ready for your next level blessing. And this is why, in order to get through it, Jesus shows us you can face your most difficult, your most dark time in your life, not by looking at the trial, but looking beyond it. And that's why when I'm talking to some people and they be talking crazy and it looks like I'm looking past them, which I really am, I'm looking beyond this and say, God, if I don't respond in a negative way, you got a blessing with my name on it. And that's why I don't let people stop me from what God has on the other side of them. All right. Hope looks beyond it. Faith sees through it. All right. Faith sees me through it. My faith says, I really want to respond in my flesh, but faith says, I don't know what God has for me, but I know it's something on the other side of this trial. And this trial is only a test to see if I've matured in my faith. All right. So faith is the substance of things hoped for. It's the evidence of things not seen. So why is that important? The reason why God keeps testing me in this area of response is my faith needs to be genuine. And some of you, because you've been sitting in church for a while, because you've been on Bible study for a while, you just expect your faith to be genuine. But your faith has to be tested so you know it's real. Lord have mercy. You have to know it's real. So the first part of changing your perspective is you got to believe that there's something greater on the other side of what you're going through right now. All right. And I just shared with y'all that I was tested real hard this summer with my baby girl. I was tested real hard with some things that were dealing with her because, like y'all said, I'm passionate about mine. I don't just teach this. I am passionate about mine. And there were some times where the enemy was trying to take me out of character, trying to get me to do things, trying to get me to respond in a negative way. And I kept saying, God, just hold me. God, I know you said you were able to keep me from falling. I need you to do that right now so I can be a visible demonstration to my family that I just don't teach it, I live it. All right. Now watch this. Because I was able to handle it, because my wife was able to handle it, now she's receiving blessings that others tried to block. And the reason why those blessings are coming is because we were able to respond in a godly manner. And some of you, you keep wondering, God, why my blessing is not coming? I don't do this. I don't do this. I don't do this. How do you handle trials? How do you respond to trials? And so many times you're looking at the big stuff, but once again, it may be something simple like your response. It may be something simple like your response. So you got to look at the big picture. What you're facing right now was sent by God to see if you're mature enough for grown folks' blessings. And most of you want to have childlike response, but want God to bless you like a grown folk, like a grown person. Whew, Lord have mercy. Teach, Pastor. All right. So when God begins to develop you, you got to understand, I got to look beyond this foolishness and stay faithful to receive what God has on the other side. All right. So that's the first thing. The first thing is you got to have a response that goes beyond the here and the now. Here's the second response. My response is based on what I know. All right. My response is based on what I know. Here's what I know when you're dealing with trials. I know it's temporary. Whatever you're dealing with, it is temporary. All right. Listen to what it says. Listen to what it says. In this you greatly rejoice. Watch this phrase. Watch this phrase. Though now for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by various trials. All right. Look at that phrase. Though now for a little while, for a little while. If you can ever grasp this concept, it's going to help your response. Trials are controlled by God, and they do not last forever. I know Keith Sweat want to make it last. I'm sorry. I had a flashback. They do not last forever. God controls the trials. He allows them. He arranges them. Whatever you're dealing with, God sent it. God allowed it. God controls the trials. They do not last forever. Here it is. They are for a season. Every trial you deal with is for a season. Here's what I love about God. God controls the time and he controls the temperature. Oh, God. God controls the time. He knows how long you need to deal with this. And he also knows how hot he needs to let it get in your life. All right. So once you understand that, you're like, I don't know how much more I could take. I don't know how much more I could take. You're right. You don't know. So that's why you got to trust God, because he knows just how much you can handle. What's interesting to me is in Daniel chapter 3, when they threw the Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace. All right. Here's what they said. Let's turn the heat up. No. That's God's job. That's God's job. So what did they do? They turned the heat up, and God says, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let them get burned. I'm going to let them get burned because I know how much you can handle. And when they turned the heat up, the ones who set the trap for them was the ones that got destroyed. And I'm talking to some people on here tonight. They tried their best to turn the heat up on you. They tried their best to destroy you. They tried their best to damage your credibility, and they were the ones that got destroyed. Because God says it's my job to control the time and the temperature. All right. And you have to know whatever you're dealing with, no matter how heavy it is, it's temporary. It's temporary. Listen to what 2 Corinthians 4:16 says. Therefore, we don't lose heart. If you're a child of God, you don't lose heart. You don't get weary in well doing. Though outwardly we're wasting away, but inwardly we are being renewed day by day. All right. Listen to what he says. For our light, that's the heaviness of it, and momentary troubles, that's how long they last, are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. All right. God is doing something greater than what I can see. All right. So here's how I do it. I fix my eyes on not what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Unpack that. You see the person plotting. You see the person trying to steal your joy. You see the person trying to set traps for you. That's what you see. But you got to know what you see is temporary. The blessing on the other side that you can't see lasts forever. It lasts forever. All right. So you got to understand that whatever you're dealing with, well, Pastor, you just don't know the magnitude of it. Whatever you're dealing with, well, Pastor, you just don't know how long I've been dealing. Whatever you're dealing with, you got to know, number one, it's temporary. All right. It's temporary. Here's number two. You also got to know that not only is it temporary, but you got to know it's necessary. So you think you're there, and you might be there for the level you own now. But what God is doing is he'll send you trials based on the level he's trying to take you to. All right. So you're thinking, I'm good. I'm a child of God. No. This next level got some different some different devils. All right. It got some different devils. So watch this. He says, in this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, that's temporary, if necessary, you've been grieved by various trials. All right. So he lets you know it's for a little while. And he puts this phrase in there, if necessary. Some translation says if need be. All right. But if necessary. God sees when you, oh, Lord have mercy. Be careful how you say this, Pastor. When you look at that post and you say, I can't believe they act like that. I can't believe they act like that. I can't believe that will never happen to me. I would never let my children do it. I would never. Then God said, okay, let me put something in your plate. Because you need to have a wake-up call to let you know you're not all that. All right. So that's why I said, if need be, God sees your thoughts. And he knows when you need a trial to humble yourself. That's why you've heard me say it before. I've had enough humbling experiences from God. I learned how to humble myself every day. Whew, Lord have mercy. I learn how to humble myself every day. I take that off God's plate. God, you don't have to humble me today because your humility, it hurts sometimes. All right. So you have to learn how to humble yourself. If not, God says, okay, you need a trial. You need a trial. All right. And here's the shout. Trials have an intended purpose designed by God. Hear me well. Trials have an intended purpose designed by God. And here's the worst part about trial. God don't send you an email and say, hey, would today be a good time to have a trial? Hey, what about tomorrow at 3:30? Would a trial be good? I know you're planning your girls' trip this weekend. Would a trial be good Saturday? No. God doesn't send emails. He don't ask you because he has an intended purpose and it does not line up with your time frame. Teach, Pastor. Trials, every trial you face has an intended purpose. All right, here's the thing. We may not know the purpose going through the trial, but God knows. And that's important because if God knows the purpose, when the purpose is established, when the purpose is complete, the trial is over. Lord have mercy. God knows why he sent the trial. It has an intended purpose. The purpose may be to grow you in one area of your life. All right. The purpose may be to grow you in one area of your life. And keep in mind, let's look at this. Peter is the author of 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 6. All right. He's the author of this. And listen to what Peter's writing. In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you've been grieved by various trials. All right. So Peter understands trials. He understands. Peter, how do you know so much about that? How do you know how God sends trials to humble you and God has a purpose? If you read Mark 14:31, here's what Peter says. Even if I got to die with you, I will never disown you. All right. That's what Peter said. That's what Peter said in Mark chapter 14. Lord, these other brothers might do it, but I will never do that because the Lord is my shepherd. I will never do that because the Lord is the head of my life and I will never do. That's what Peter said. So God had to arrange a trial where they came and they said, hey, aren't you one of his? And Peter like, no, I don't even know that dude. I don't even know that dude. All right. It's amazing how he shifted when the pressure got on. And so God says, I heard what you said with your mouth. Let me put you in a situation to see if you really believe what you just said at church Sunday. All right. So that's why I tell people, be careful with them testimonies. Be careful with that, what I'll never do. And I'm going to make up my mind to do this. And I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Be very, very careful because God says, I want to make sure what you said in your mouth lined up with your life. All right. And so God knows the purpose of every trial. Every trial that you go through has purpose. All right. So you got to know, number one, that it's necessary. Number one is temporary. Number two is necessary. All right. You got to know it's necessary. Listen to what David says in 119 verse 67. Listen to what he said. He says, before I was afflicted, I went astray. I went whichever way I wanted to go. I went astray before I was afflicted. But now I obey y'all. I obey your word. What does that mean? I tried it my way and I was doing my own thing and then God sent a trial. And now on the other side of the trial, God, what you think about this? God, what you think about this? All right. And some of you, the reason why you on the right road now, the reason why you on the straight and narrow now is because of what you went through. All right. So the trial was necessary for getting you back on track. Ooh, I wish I had somebody who can testify tonight, Pastor. You knocking on my door because that's why I love God so much. Is because what I went through, he got me back on track. And my prayer, I'm not talking to everybody, but my prayer was, God, if you can get me out of this, Lord, if you can get me out of this, Lord, if you can get me back on track. Here's what we say. I swear for God, I won't do it no more. I swear for God, I'm going to be in Sunday school. I swear for God, I'm going to be back in church. I swear I'm going to start paying my tithes. We make those promises on the other side of affliction. All right. And so you got to understand that every trial was designed to get you on your knees before God, to humble yourself. And that's why, watch what he writes in verse 71. It was good for me. It was good for me to be afflicted so that I can learn your word. That's the reason why I study the word like I do, because of what I've been through. And I know the reason why I study like I study is because of what I went through. And now I have the task to help some others not go through it. And if they're going through it, show them you can come out. Here's what the songwriter said. If Bible don't get you, then the songwriter might get you. I thank God for my mountains. I thank God for my valleys. I thank him for the storms that he brought me through. For if I never had a problem, I wouldn't know God could solve them. I'd never know what faith in God could do. Through it all, I've learned to trust in God. Look at those words. I wouldn't know God could solve them. You keep saying, God, you're a healer. God, you're a healer, but you don't want to be sick. God, you a way maker, but you don't want to have to go through some trials and tribulations. All right. God says the only way you'll know that I can solve your problems is I got to give you some problems. All right. And that's where you learn how to trust in God. All right. So you got to understand, when God begins to develop your perspective, you got to be able to see beyond the here and now. You got to know that the trial is temporary. You got to know that the trial is necessary. But I hear you thinking, well, Pastor, how long you got to deal with these trials? I don't mind responding the right way for the first few days, first few months. How long do I got to go through it? I mean, golly, I've been going through it for a couple of years now. Here's what you got to understand. Whew, Lord have mercy. Here's what you got to understand. How long will I have to go through the trial, the test? It depends on what you are producing. I saw this on a website, and it just blew my mind. For a mouse to produce another mouse, a baby, 20 days. 20 days. For a beaver to produce 3 months. For a human to produce 9 months. For a giraffe to produce 15 months. For an elephant to produce 22 months. So what's the significance? Look at the size of a mouse compared to an elephant. Oh, Lord have mercy. Look at the size. What the mouse can produce, it only takes 20 days. But what the elephant has to produce, it's going to take almost 2 years. What a human can produce, it's going to take 9 months. But what an elephant can produce, it's going to take 22 months. And some of you want elephant blessings, but you only want to deal with mouse trials. Teach, Pastor. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. If you're going through something that's heavy, it means God has something greater coming after this. And that's why the magnitude of your trials may be an indication of the magnitude of your blessing. All right. And so I'm not sure. I think my mom's computer's messed up, but I shared this with a group one day. And they were looking at me kind of funny because it sounds arrogant. It really, really, really sounds arrogant. But when my mom gets on Bible study and she sees her son teaching the word of God, making it plain, breaking it down to hundreds of people across the country, when she sees her son leading a church through building projects, she sees her son doing revivals and lives are being changed. She sees all that's just an indication of what she has to carry. That's just an indication of carrying multiple sclerosis for 30 some years. That's why God is blessing her son with the magnitude, because what she's carrying enabled her to produce something that's blessing the world, that's blessing the country. The weight that she's carrying is an indication of the blessing that her son, her daughter-in-law, her granddaughter, that's why we're receiving the blessing, because she understood, if I carry the magnitude of this multiple sclerosis, if I carry the magnitude of this suffering, this sickness, and I make God look good, he's going to bless my child. And so many of you, you don't even know why you're going through it. And God says, if you carry it like a champ, you may not experience the benefits of it, but I'm going to make sure that your seed and your seed is being blessed. And I believe I got one or two witnesses who can testify tonight. You're not too arrogant enough to know that the reason why you're being blessed, the reason why your children are being blessed is because of the weight and the magnitude. And that's why I get so frustrated when people want your blessings, but they don't want to bear what you had to carry. Oh, God. They want your blessing. They're like, ooh, I want Pastor's blessing. I want to drive with Pastor drive. I want to live with Pastor live. I want to have church like Pastor guy. No. Are you willing to carry the weight of what I have to deal with? All right. Are you willing to carry the load for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? No, you just want the blessing without having the production. Without having the burden that I had to carry. All right. And so you got to understand the magnitude of what you're dealing with is an indication of what God wants to produce through you. All right. What God wants to produce through you. And so some of you, God is saying, hey, hold on for a little while. Hold on. What I'm producing is taking a little while, but you're going to be satisfied when it comes. You're going to be satisfied when it comes. So I'm praying tonight that somebody says, you know what? I'm going to learn how to respond differently to trials because now I understand why they come. All right. Now I understand why they come. All right. So let me see if I can wrap it up. My response is based on what I know. All right. I know it's temporary. I know it's necessary. But this last one is, here it is. I know it's a test. I know it's a test. I know it's a test. It says, in this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, you've been grieved by various trials, that the genuineness of your faith, being more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ. All right. So we understand tests. There are various tests in life, but the magnitude and the difficulties vary. All right. There's various tests in life, but the magnitude and the difficulties vary. All right. My test may not look like your test because you're not producing what I'm producing. All right. So the magnitude, we understand that in life. There's a pop quiz. Just a little summer pop quiz. It don't count, but for a little bit of your grade, a pop quiz, not that bad. And that's what happens to you sometime on your job. They'll say something out of the way. Okay, cool. That ain't no big thing. I can deal with that. That's pop quiz test. All right. An exam, an exit exam. When you're trying to graduate, exit exam, that's a different level. Midterm, that's a different level. The bar exam. All right. The MCAT, those are different. Driver's license. All right. They're not going to trust you to get on the road till they test you. All right. A doctoral dissertation. There are different levels to the test. Just like in life, there are various tests and various levels. So is your walk with God. And some of you, God is saying, man, I just gave you a pop quiz last week and it broke you down. How are you going to handle when this company is entrusting you with this? All right. You can't even handle this. And so we don't understand the magnitude of our level of growth and maturity is based on how we respond to tests. All right. And the reason why God tests your faith is because your faith is too valuable not to be tested. All right. Your faith is too valuable not to be tested. So here's the challenge. When God tests us, remember these three things. When God tests your faith, remember these three things. Number one, it's going to eliminate the impurities. And I know you think I know you think you're great. You think you grade your paper and you're not like your neighbor. You're not like that person down the street. You're not like them other folk. I understand that, but God sees those impurities in your life. He sees your thought life. He sees your motives. He sees those little things. So what he does is he'll send a test to eliminate those impurities. You do a good job of covering them up, but God wants to take them out. He wants to eliminate the impurities in your walk with him. All right. Then another thing he wants to do for you is he'll allow tests to come to expose the imposters. There are some people you want to hook up with, so God sends them a test so they can fail it publicly, so you can say, "Oh, I'm glad I didn't hook up with them." I ain't got you know that person that you like, oh God, if you could just let me get him. Oh God, if you could just let me hook up with that person. Oh God, if you could just send them my way. And then a trial came like, oh Lord, I'm glad I didn't hook up with that crazy. I'm sorry. I'm glad I'm glad I didn't talk to them. I'm glad I didn't talk to. So he exposes imposters. There are some people that do a good job of making it sound good. They do a good job of making it attractive. And he's like, okay, I gotta go there. I gotta be with them. I gotta put my stock with them. And God says the reason why I send trials and tests is because number one, I'm gonna eliminate impurities in your life. But then number two, I'm gonna expose the imposters. Anybody can do well when everything is going good. Anybody can do well when everything is going good, but trials expose the imposters. All right. But then when you go through trials, if you grow, you start to expect the impossible. All right. When a trial comes in your life and you know God allowed it, and God arranged it, you're like, okay, God, let me see how you gonna handle this. Let me see how you gonna handle this. And that's where I am in my walk with God. Whenever something comes up and Tashika may text me and say, hey, baby, this right here happened. It's like, I'm like, oh, God, what you about to do now? Oh, God, what you about to do now? My baby don't have housing. Oh, God, what are you going to do now? God, we need another scholarship. What are you going to do now? When trials come, I expect the impossible. I expect God to do something that's going to blow my mind. All right. Okay, God, we need how much to do the building? Okay, God, blow my mind. All right. So when trials come, don't shrink under the pressure. Expect the impossible. All right. Expect the impossible. You're frustrated. You're frustrated because, God, I've been doing this for so long and I ain't caught nothing. Then God shows up and gives you one word. Hey, cast your net on the other side. Okay, if I cast this net on the other side, I'm expecting something great. All right. So you got to understand that when trials come and they begin to test your faith, you got to know these three things. Know these three things. It's going to eliminate the impurities. All right. It's going to eliminate that stuff that's keeping you from walking closer to God. It's going to expose the imposters and it's going to get you to that level where you expect the impossible. All right. The attitude of a believer in the fire is just like Job. He knows the way that I take. And when he has tested me, I will come forth as pure gold. All right. When I come out of this, that's my mindset, and it should be your mindset. When you go through a trial, when I come out of this, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be wiser. I'm going to be stronger. I'm not going to fall for the okie doke like I did before. All right. And last but not least, when your trial, your test is over, you should come forth as pure gold, because when you go through trials, it tests your value, and your value is realized. What do I mean by that? Because of what I've gone through, you can't just give me anything. I know my value. I know my worth. All right. And when you've gone through some things, you don't just let people handle you any kind of way. And you don't just let people give you any kind of thing. All right. And the reason being is you know what you've gone through. You know your value. You know your worth. And even if you didn't know it before, you know it now. All right. Even if you didn't know it before, you know it now. All right. So here's the conclusion. Here's the conclusion. How are you able to respond with the proper perspective? That's the question tonight. Pastor, how can I respond with the proper perspective? There's just four things. Number one, have a hope that sees beyond the here and now. Whatever you're dealing with, have the mindset that there's a blessing beyond this. I'm not going to allow this to stop me from getting what God has for me. All right. And it's not circumstantial. It's not circumstantial. Whatever it is, I got to see beyond the here and the now. And then know this. It's not going to last forever. Whatever you're dealing with, it's not going to last forever. Watch this, unless you let it. All right. And I've discovered some people like pity parties. Some people want to stay in that pity party because they love the attention it brings. All right. God didn't deliver them. It's 3 years later. Hey, how you doing? Well, I went to this about 6 years ago and I'm still. No. You ought to be rejoicing that I went through something and God brought me out. End of story, period, exclamation point. All right. It's temporary unless you allow it to drag on. All right. Then you got to know it's necessary. If God allowed you to go through it, he's got a purpose in mind. And then I got to approach everything. It's a test. It's a test of my faithfulness to God. All right.